with the Warrior deck, and we're going to see the Rogue deck from Hype. Now, we're going to see this deck in short order, but I think it's fair to say the Rogue deck of Hyped it's a mech Rogue.
It's a really interesting deck because it's not something that you've seen, multiple times. So far, you've seen a lot of Rogue decks being experimented with post GVG. Oh, the double Mech Warper opener here.
Oh man,
from the Rogue.
We're just trying to get the hand of Hyped up there, but as you can see, double Mech Warper, Fiery War Axe coming down.
Yep. So at least the Fiery War Axe is going to trade very positively with this board. But considering the mana that the Rogue is going to have here, he can play any 3-drop. Spider Tank, Harvest Golem, Iron Sensei to protect the Mech Warper. Oh, better yet, Arcane Nullifier. That's even better.
Turn 3 Arcane Nullifier. That's a huge amount of damage that has to come in from the Warrior. And that's going to really help him to stop the Warrior being able to build up armor. Because that's a
He cannot do
problem.
anything at the moment because right now the Warrior can't Shield Slam, he can't execute. The best he can do is pray for a, Fire War Axe into Fire War Axe. That is going to be what it the only play that he can really make at this point.
Both the Fiery War Axes are going to come down very, very early. And that's a big tool in the arsenal, particularly against something like an Arcane Nullifier. And if the Iron Sensei comes down here, the Arcane Nullifier could go out of range.
It's gonna have to be a 50% chance of it. Like if Iron Sensei comes down, the chances of it buffing the Mech Warper and the Arcane Nullifier are 50-50. So if it does buff the Arcane Nullifier,
here we go.
Oh goodness!
I was gonna say there's only one Iron Sensei in this deck as well, so this is a
Fire War Axe and the Cruel Taskmaster is still going to kill the Arcane Nullifier. The 1 damage ping would still function. All right, it buffed the Mech Warper though in the end. So.
Okay, but that is a scary looking Mech Warper as well at this point. And he's got very little choice other than to use the Fire War Axe to clear, and then there's really no
you have
choice.
to Shield Slam the Iron Sensei here. If you let it sit there, it's one of those cards that just snowballs out of control. For rogues, I mean, the Mech Rogue is not something you've seen multiple times, but when it does come out on Anoyotron, Arcane Nullifier, those are pretty much the best 2 targets for that specific card. But even when they do get to buff something as measly as an Auto Barber, it's still very strong.
For sure. And still not a huge amount of those mid-range options. The Shield Maiden coming down is going to allow some delay from Phonetap,
but maybe the play is more of a Death's Bite Cruel Taskmaster here. I don't exactly know if that's optimal, but it seems to me that there has to be some kind of aggression well, not aggression, but removal heavy plays coming from the Warrior at this point because he doesn't have anything. Like he can hardly really justify taking damage to the face non-stop by just playing Shield Maiden because he's still going to take 8. So maybe Death's Bite attack the Drake and armor up. Like that's pretty much all there is.
The Death's Bite is going to attack the Drake here. I believe we're going to have to come out of that game very briefly for some technical issues with the top hand, but we're going to go back to that game in progress as soon as possible. While we're doing that, I can bring you some other results as well. It's currently a draw between Alchemist and Psycho ZA. That's 1-1. Dills is 1-0 down against Sandmang, and Dan Gugley has won his game against Myzettings. So Dan Gugley and Green Sheep, the first 2 players confirmed as being in the round of 24. Obviously, if they win their 3rd game, they'll top their group and get in theory, an optimal seeding in the round of 24, going up against a runner-up rather than a winner from another group. But lots of results coming in thick and fast, and obviously this matchup here between Phonetap and Hyped. Okay, the match between Phonetap and Hyped, the Mech Rogue seemingly getting out of control against the Control Warrior, and stopping what is the main strategy for the Warrior, which is getting that armor and staying on top.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that, we couldn't finish the game at the moment. Like, I have no idea what's going on as we speak. But all I know is that Mech Rogue had an amazing start. Double Mech Warper is something you can hardly recover from. It's been claimed to be the new Undertaker by some people, which I would tend to agree with, where it might create unrecoverable, board positions. When you get 2 of them, like double Undertaker opener into turn 2 Death Rattle, sometimes I will just... The only positively with those is with the Fire War Axe. That's pretty much the best way. And Mech Warper is still a better Like you can still deal with Mech Warper better than you can deal with Undertaker. At least it's got that benefit. But there's literally no way to trade positively with Undertaker outside of Fiery War Axe, and that's like one class, one card that you're gonna get about 50-ish% of the time, assuming you're on the coin. It's just such a low chance. So it's at least a little more healthy Mech Warper, but it can still lead to amazing snowballs.
And the Iron Sensei as well, which is a card that maybe a lot of people underestimated, I think, a little bit coming into GVG. But as you say, it's another one of those, which like a Mech Warper, Iron Sensei. You got things
Yep.
like Arcane Nullifier and Annoyatrons coming down. The Iron Sensei can snowball, and we're actually back in the game now. And okay, so we
All
still
right.
can't see hyped hands, but that's fine. We're gonna keep on with just the one hand, and we can see that things have gotten very out of hand
Yeah, it's over.
very,
The
very
game's
quickly,
over.
and the game is over
All right,
on
so it
turn
turns out
8.
double pilot shredder will do that to Warrior, despite the double shields made and apparently that was played while we were away.
It's just about to say
But
is being
yeah,
able to deal what 40 effective damage, even plus the hero power in 8 turns. That's absolutely insane from the Mech Rogue.
double mech warper. It's all I'm gonna say. That
Definitely.
that's
So
that's the extent of what I'm gonna comment on this about is double mech warper. Like I could be playing priest and with double mech warper I'll do just fine. It doesn't matter which class I'm playing with my mechs. If I've got double mech warper as an opener, and notice how hyped played it. He played mech warper, coin mech warper, as opposed to playing one on turn 2 and then the second one on turn 3. A lot of people sorry make the mistake of usually dumping the mech warper, naked quote unquote on the board without anything else to go with it, and that usually means you might not get the value from the effect that you'd like. Whereas if you wait one turn, then sometimes you can just pull off a 2 drop immediately.
particularly against the warrior, you got to think that they've been mulliganing for Fiery War Axe, and
Yeah,
that's just that ruins your day if you're playing a Mech Warper. So we're going to
yeah,
see the Druid deck of a Phonetap here in game 2. This is it's shape the double combo Druid format, the faster Druid. Does have
yep,
some interesting cards. The Doctor Boom at the top, of course, but also Trogzor the Earthinator in
yep.
this deck. I'm a
A
big
big
fan of
favorite of
Trogzor.
mine pre GVG, but it's kind of interesting that he's playing both of the 7 drops that came with GVG that people appreciated. A lot of people thought Trogzor would be better than Doctor Boom. It was pretty obvious, I think, to a lot of people that Doctor Boom would be better. But it turns out that Trogzor was just completely ignored, just forgotten about. Nobody even bothers with the card.
I guess when you're looking at the stats that you get from a Doctor Boom, you get 9/9s worth of minions on the board,
Hmm.
whereas Trogzor you get 6/6.
Yeah,
It doesn't really compare, but Trogzor's effect can be absolutely devastating against some decks.
I mean, Freeze Mage, for instance, since it's come back, will hate Trogzor because it doesn't matter how many times they try to wipe the board, things will come back. The only time where they manage to do it is with a Doomsayer Frost Nova, but when that happens, you just silence it with Keeper of the Grove, or you find a way to deal with it in just other druidic ways, and that tends to not be enough to get rid of Trogzor. When you only have a 2 card combo to get rid of 1 card, it can be really problematic, which is what I like about the addition of Trogzor in some specific lists. I haven't seen too many people run that, but it is a card that I think is getting overlooked very, very harshly.
How far can this Mech Rogue deck really go? Are there any poor matchups for this Mech Rogue really that you think could really just stop in his tracks?
That would stop it in its tracks. Um, I mean, as I said, tempo decks tend to either have a good start and do well, or have to play the control. Like they can either go beat down or aggro, right? Or control. They have to play either or. And Rogue has this ability of going beat down, which is very aggressive. Beat or have to lie down, lie back and just backstab, eviscerate stuff, and fan of knives, SI save, like just control the board for a while to then come back and start establishing really rough tempo. But the deck, the way that rogues function is very unique, so they have the ability of playing both playstyles, and that's what I like about the class. I like that it can just pick both beat down and control as viable playstyles in the same deck and do excessively well. And obviously, Hyped probably thinks the same because he is running. I mean, I don't think he's going all in on mechs in his deck. Although we did see a very heavy, mech opener, I'm pretty sure it's a little bit more. It's got to have some kind of removal heavy plays in there for sure.
Yeah, well, I think looking at this deck, it seems that the early game is very focused around the mechs, but it's also focused around having a strong top end as well.
Yeah.
Some interesting bigger minions up the top there that we didn't get a chance to see in that quick game. But if the game were to go late, it actually seems like Hype's Rogue deck may have the tools to even cope with maybe when the mechs are are outpowered from what's coming in. Though playing against a fast druid deck, it's not going to be a case of those big minions being a huge threat. Obviously, with the two
Well,
7 drops as well.
I don't have the deck list of hyped in front of me, but I can pretty much bet that he's going to be running at least one sap, which is going to be a very important tool against any druid deck. If he's teched at any point, you know, a Black Knight or any kind of big game hunter for the late game of Druid, he might be able to remove the Doctor Boom fairly easily. Fan of Knives also a very good card. So there are pretty decent options here to deal with Druid minions, but they're not going to be necessarily as good as the old Miracle Rogue would have had it against Druid. So kind of annoying. Also, Trade Prince Galliok is an amazing 6 drop, I think. Rogues got really lucky with that legendary in GVG. It's a guy that not a lot of people have been talking about, but he does. He just his body makes him viable, and the ability is kind of an extra bonus on top. A 5H for 6, although it's no Boulder Fist Ogre, it's got more health, so it dies less easily.
I mean, what can do that much damage, really, from any class? What can deal
At
with
turn
it?
6 or 5 with coin, that's a huge card.
It it's
Really
one of
tough.
those cases where if it had 7 attack, it would actually be less useful because you would have an
Yeah.
out for it. But at 5'8", you just don't have any out.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, 5/8 is, I mean, 5 and 6 attack are the sweet spots of legendaries because of Big Game Hunter. And it's funny when I think about the metagame shifts that might occur if changes were made to the game. Big Game Hunter would become so powerful if Undertaker was removed from the metagame because suddenly people would slow down their decks probably a little bit, and BGH would just become that much stronger. And like a lot of things would change if just a few changes were made to the game. And for that reason, I feel like Trade Prince at the moment is one of the better legendaries because even though BGH could become a strong card in the future, it is just flying under its radar. It's really hard to remove. You have Hex, like you need hard removal for this,
Yeah,
which you
certainly,
give them a copy of. So
and that hard removal against is something like, unless it's something like a naturalize in the druid, there isn't that hard removal.
yeah,
And
there's like, what are you gonna do? Recycle?
this isn't
I
the
don't.
mill
I think
druids,
not.
so we're not
I
seeing
think not.
naturalize.
Yeah,
But
definitely not.
we are going to go into game 2 here. We're going to see the druid against the mech rogue.
Hmm.
I do believe we still aren't able to see Hype's perspective, but we're gonna push on there.
All right. Well, that's interesting because I think there might be an option there where you have to allow friends to invite, to spectate. Maybe there's an option in the menu that he hasn't enabled. I wouldn't know.
Possibly he's just being just doesn't want us to see him. Wants to keep
Yeah, that's it.
mysterious.
Wants to keep the deck list to himself. Doesn't want us to reveal anything about the deck.
For sure. And we're just waiting on that game getting going. But see if I can bring you any more scores while we are. Semi-Jew won his second game as a result of no show, I believe. 6-0, he gets a bye as well because his opponent is missing. So 6-0 is also confirmed for the round of 24. He's 2-0 at this point, and he will go into his final game against Psycho ZA, who I believe
Psycho, yeah.
is still drawing with Alchemist. So that'll be an interesting to see the result of that. If Alchemist loses, in fact, that's just been updated. Alchemist did beat Psycho ZA, so Alchemist is still in with a shot of
Yeah,
qualifying for the
because
round of
he lost
24.
his first series of best of three against Zixo, but now because he wins in the second round of Swiss, still has a shot at getting into the top slots.
Here we are, and I believe we have the overlay may be slightly wrong here because we have hyped on the bottom, I believe.
Yeah, that
As you
is
can see,
fine.
this is his hand here. You can see 2 backstabs and a sap in the hand.
Yeah. You have to keep the sap against Druid just because of the potential innervate openers. It's a very, very problematic situation when you can't do it. But did he mulligan it away or am I glitched?
Um, I'm not sure. The mulligan is very difficult in the spectator mode. It doesn't feel like it
Yeah.
quite 100% works yet.
Spectator mode still needs to be improved.
And the overlay is shifting around as we speak, and we're just waiting for this
All
game.
right,
So
so
he did
he
mulligan away
mulligans.
all of those.
Yeah, he actually mulligans for a very early curve, trying to put pressure with mechs very fast, which I think is a little interesting personally.
Yeah, we can see actually both hands here. So we do have the full spectator view. You can see wild growth, coin wild growth for Phonetap. Now, This is a play that I've seen talked about quite a lot, and a lot of people say you should only do it if you have a 3-drop.
Yeah, like a
What
shade of Nax Ramas.
do you think there's any merit to coining out the wild growth when you don't have a follow-up?
I mean, it depends like what the deck is running and the as it is, right? Like we don't really know. I mean, if you expect to top deck, if you think Innervate could be an out, if you have ace, that's 4 cards you could get as decent follow-ups. But generally speaking, I would tend to agree with the position that there's really no point doing so.
And we do see hand for the rogue as well. I believe we're just waiting on. Not
Maybe the
sure.
spectator mode glitched again.
Possibly a slight delay here.
Yeah, there's definitely a glitch going on here because from what I can see, the turn of the druid should have been done already. So we'll have to resume spectator mode again. Spectator
Yep.
mode is so glitchy; it's unreal how glitchy it is. I'm actually mind blown at just how long that feature took to implement, and then we come in and it's largely unusable. Like you have to try and try and try multiple times.
Yeah, it is difficult because I mean spectator mode is absolutely essential in this game to open
Yep.
up the tournament scene and really open up Hearthstone esports to the point where you don't need like a dedicated video server.
Yeah.
But okay, so we're back here now, and you can see
A Paladin
s-
Shredder got exploded for Stone Splinter Trog. Just
I
want to
was
point
just gonna
that
say,
out. He is not playing the Trog.
yeah, I have the
Uh,
deck list here. He's not playing the Trog, so that came out of a Pilot Shredder. You can see the Arcane Nullifier coming down for hyped, and a Druid of the Claw. So he's getting that advantage from the Wild Growth now, I believe.
yep.
Um, but still a strong hand from hyped. He does have the SI7 agent as well.
Yeah. Now there's a really interesting follow-up here with plays that can be made with Eviscerate. Like Iron Sensei Eviscerate here can get rid of the Druid of the Claw, and it will buff the Arcane Nullifier afterwards. So that is a potential play here. I do see him do that.
I think that's the play he's certainly looking at here. He is going to be able to. He's going to be able to.
Oh, do
I
you
just see.
just kill the Trog? Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he's
just kills the
yes.
Trog. There we go. Oh wow. All right. The Black Knight though going to do a lot of work here. Oh, the Black Knight tempo swing. That is huge.
Of
Huge
course,
play
one
here from Phonetap. They're going to swing the game back in his favor.
things that perhaps newer players or maybe players who haven't played the game very often get confused by the effect that can't be targeted by spells or hero powers, battle cries, and that. But in fact, battle cries are one of the few ways to deal with those types of
Yep.
cards, and the Black Knight getting huge value, as you said.
Yeah. So I'm at the moment. I feel like the position of Phonetap is already dominating, and he's just going to pound down a Trogzor to spawn burly Rockjaw Trogs to compound the advantage. And at the moment, like Hive will be taking at least 8 damage a turn at the moment.
Ragnaros coming into hand for hyped, but yeah, that Trogzor coming down on turn 7 exactly as you'd wanted it. And there's a Shadow Boxer coming off the piloted mech.
I've got the beast.
You
Yeah, I
really have
mean,
to love these pilot cards.
do you? Oh wow.
Wow, he's really desperate to clear the board here. Big Game Hunter coming down. Oh, okay.
I thought he was going to backstab and SI7 the Black Knight and take the 4 damage, but
Yeah,
he opted not to.
it's interesting. He played the SI7 onto the Black Knight without killing the Black Knight. What could be possibly his game plan there? Is he just trying to eliminate value trades?
Well,
I can't quite figure it out myself. All I know is that at the moment he's going to go in for the damage. He's got lethal with the Keeper of the Grove.
I must
Here is the
say
Savage Roar, and that is
That
going to be
is,
it. Phonetap is going to level it up 1-1 against Hyped, and we're going to see a Druid mirror match going into game 3 of this series.
Mirror match druids are always fun. It comes down to who has the wild growth. It's a very simple, if you had to make like a programming scheme of it, it would be, do you have wild growth? If not, then mulligan. It's just that simple.
Well, I have to say, and not to give away too much from this deck, but if you're waiting for the wild growths from Hyped, you might be waiting a little while.
Okay,
because
okay, then
there
that's
are
awesome.
none. He,
That's
in fact,
awesome.
Is playing a different variant of Druid that doesn't run those wild growths. So it's not going to be about who wins the wild growth first, because if it is,
Okay.
Phone Tapped is going to win straight away. So this is going to be very interesting. It is actually, looking at these two decks, the hyped Druid deck is a very different form of. I mean, if I tell you that we're going to be seeing some very different things, particularly in the early game, it's going to be a very interesting mirror match. And if Phone Tapped isn't able to get that ramp out early, I think that hyped Druid deck could really snowball here.
So what you're telling me is that he's playing mana wraiths, right?
Of course, mana wraiths and wisps.
Okay, that's what I thought with Hobgoblin. That is some next level stuff right there.
The Druid Hobgoblin deck. Now,
Yes.
the Hobgoblin, I think it has potential.
Yeah, it does. It really does. It is a really cool card. It is a viable card. As weird as it is to say that, it is actually a playable card. And Druid could, I think they have the best lineups possible to, adapt the card to their needs. So
Bringing you some
when
other results while we're waiting for this final game. Alchemist has won 2-1, so he is still alive. He's going to be able to have a chance to win his final game and go through. And Dills did lose 0-2 to Sandming, so he's going to be playing green sheet for his survival. But there we go. And actually, you get a little glimpse in the hand there. This is our height on bottom. And you can see the zombie Chow, which perhaps tells you a little bit about what we're maybe going to see from this deck. But a Shade of Naxxramas, Druid of the Claw, and Lotheb in hand.
if I see Zombie Chow, I have to expect a little bit more of an aggressive deck. Like Undertaker's. I don't know. I feel like he doesn't have to. Oh well.
And there is the Undertaker. Well,
speaking of the
Undertaker.
devil,
In fact, Undertaker Innervate Harvest Golem is actually a pretty good play here.
it is an amazing play. But the thing is, he's putting a lot of pressure. But the moment Zombie Chow dies, that pressure is largely mitigated. He's got exactly one card in hand, so he will need to be getting some amazing follow-ups here.
And it's not even a really playable card. It's a Black Knight for 6 mana, which he doesn't have.
Yeah, he will need to top deck another Innervate to get maximum tempo swing out of this.
The Zombie Chow is a very difficult card for the reasons, obviously, that you stated. If, all the damage that you do with it and the work that you do with it can largely be mitigated in healing. Personally, I've never seen it as a hugely useful card, but and on the versatility of the Zombie Chow.
The value of it really stems from the fact that if you're playing against, like, it's a broader, especially for Swiss formats, I feel like it's interesting that you can be running Zombie Chows and not get punished too harshly. Because if you run into aggro, you can very easily mitigate some of their early game snowballs. I'm actually surprised the Hunter was banned, considering he is running Zombie Chows. I feel like this is one of the cards you're happy to have against a Hunter.
And you can see the card that came into hand for hyped is another hugely situational card, the Big Game Hunter. He doesn't want to play that when he's in an aggro deck. He needs to keep that for dealing with the big threats. And lots of options here for in the hand for Phonetap, but nothing he can really play. He's looking at, I think, a coin-piloted Shredder here.
Yeah, definitely one of the better options, because quite frankly, nothing else he plays will give him as much value over the course of the next 3 turns as a piloted Shredder will. But Hyped will be able to counter with his own. So
and that's going to buff the Undertaker, and in fact, might we see the Undertaker trade into the piloted Shredder?
You have to think about it, because if the opponent has a swipe, it's going to be a little weird. But you've got so few cards in hand that you have to go all in.
Hyped is going for Wrath comes down. That could be very useful. And the swipe and the Wrath.
This is a good swipe turn. This is a really, really good swipe turn.
And there goes the Undertaker. Possibly going to see a trade for the Zombie Chow, and that's going to heal him back up to 20 and largely take away most of the damage on board. And a Haunted Creeper is not what Hyped wanted to see.
It's not a horrendous one, assuming he does top deck the one of the Savage Roars that he might be running, because at the moment what's going on is Phonetap was forced in the position where he had to trade into the Zombie Chow just to put himself outside of range of a Savage Roar insta-kill, right? But now if he does decide to play, Druid of the Claw, then Hyped has a perfectly good answer in the Black Knight.
A Murloc Tidecaller, not really what you want to see if you're piloted Shredder.
Yeah, it's one of the worst options. I think the absolute worst would be Captain's Parrot or Novice Engineer. But yeah, as it is, it's still perfectly fine. So
I think the Novice Engineer is technically, the Parrot has Beast synergy, so...
True. Novice is actually the worst. But do you think Druid of the Claw will come down right now? Or is it too... Because you know that it's going to die to the 2-1, the 4-2, right? So you don't really get a massive tempo swing off of it. So do you consider, going Druid of the Claw, Innervate, Wrath, for card draw on the 2-1? What is your play here? Assuming you don't expect Black Knight, because he's only got 2 cards in hand.
It's very, very difficult. I mean, you do have the Lotheb, you do have the Druid of the Claw, and even if you wanted to be absolutely crazy, you could Force of Nature, you could use the Rats and the Hero Power to try and clean up this board a little bit. Yeah. But I'm not really sure whether there's an optimal play, particularly with those Death Rattles. He's not going to be able to clear what's on board.
Well, what about Shade of Naxxramas and Wrath for card draw onto the 2-1, or Hero Power the 2-1?
He does leave himself with pressure on board, though. If you're thinking sitting in Phonetap's position at this point, Noxious, and you're seeing that Hyped has, I mean, I guess at this level you're hoping the players are looking at cards and tracking cards.
Yeah.
You see he's got 2 cards in his hand, and he's just playing what he's top decking every turn. Are you starting to think that he does have maybe the combo or maybe situational cards sitting there?
Definitely, most definitely. And I think ultimately the taunting up play and killing the 2-1 with a card draw was what he had to do. But unfortunately for him, Hyped has the perfect answer. The absolute best.
He has the best answer, and in fact has the second best answer that came off the top as well in a silence. So things are going to
be secured.
Things are going to start to look very bad for Phonetap. And it looks like Hyped is probably going to close out this series here, but I can't see anything in the hand.
It's not over yet. There's a possibility of Force of Nature being used for some kind of board wipe. I mean, there is no more taunts at the moment, so that's out of the question. But the ability of using Force of Nature to start cleaning the board a little bit could actually help. You could always pray for a Doomsayer off of the Powdered Shredder, which I feel is almost the optimal play, or some kind of shenanigan like that. It's a really, really difficult position to be in right now.
I guess if you're looking at Force of Nature and trying to clear stuff up board, you probably need to run them all into the Black Knight. And that's the way you get maximum attack off the board.
Oh, but it's so risky. All right, he's playing to win, which means he's going to put something down for hopeful survival mechanics. But right now, it's
going to be all, because Hyped has 12 damage available to him with the Keeper of the Grove and the Hero Power. And that is going to be it. And Hyped is, in fact, going through to the round of 24. He will have one more game to play, but that is going to be it. And Phonetap, he's going to take the loss there. But